Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about something very special, and this is probably my favorite guitar tone of all time. This is part 3 of Chronicles of blues rock guitar tones from the 60s and the 70s. This is finally the Les Paul PAF Marshall video. In this video I am using a Les Paul with Wizz Premium PAF pickups. These are exact replica of PAF pickups. What you heard in the intro was actually just my guitar going right into the amp. So this is the Marshall Bluesbreaker reissue. My absolute favorite amp of all time, and it's such a legendary amp. This is a combo version of the JTM45, which is one of the most recorded guitar amplifiers of all time by so many people and so many legends. So in this video, I'll focus first on the guitar, specifically the pickups. Then I'll talk a little bit about the amp, of course. So if you haven't watched my previous videos, I highly recommend them. I was talking about fuzz tones and the Vox tone. These are essential tones when it comes to blues rock. But in my opinion, the epitome of awesomeness in the blues rock guitar tones is a Gibson style guitar. It doesn't have to be a Les Paul, but it has to be with PAF replicas at least, going into the amp, cranked open, just, you know, everything at 10 basically, and just sounds glorious, as you heard in the beginning of this video. So the first thing I want to talk about is PAF pickups were actually the first humbuckers. Now there is a debate whether it's the PAFs or the Filtertron that came first. Technically, they both came in the same year. I'm not going to take a side, and I'm not going to talk too much about Filtertron pickups because this video is all about the PAFs. Specifically in this guitar, I'm using the Wizz Premium humbuckers. What makes a PAF in my opinion is a number of things. A PAF pickup is a range of humbucker guitar sounds. There are so many humbuckers nowadays, and all of them share specific qualities with PAFs. But of course, not all of them are PAF style pickups. Now, we need also to distinguish between PAF style or inspired by and PAF replicas or original PAFs. Now, the replicas are trying to really replicate specific PAFs that existed in the 50s and the 60s. Inspired by is something different. It's basically taking some qualities that PAFs have and incorporating them with new designs. There are so many of these in the market. So be careful. If you're looking to buy a PAF pickup, be careful about that. Now, if you look at any humbucker or any pickup, all these pickups that you see in the market have specific qualities. Whenever you look at the spec sheet, they mention things like the type of magnet, the type of wire, the bobbins, the size of the magnet or the size of the pickup. Maybe is it covered or not, the poles of the pickups, the screws, the plate, and other dimensions and other materials in the pickup itself. Now, PAFs are just humbucker pickups. If you look at them, even if you open them, there's nothing really too special about them, at least visually, that makes them that unique. They're just humbucker pickups. And this is why you can see so many faithful replicas of PAFs. They're not like super rare or super expensive. I mean, some of them can be very expensive, But you can see so many affordable PAF pickups that are actually very faithful to original PAFs. But I think there are specific qualities that every PAF should have. For example, it has to have Alnico 2, 3, 4, or 5 magnet type. If it's using ceramics or Alnico 6 or Alnico 8 or something different or unique like that, then it's not really very faithful to the original PAFs, because original PAFs, none of them had those other types of magnets. Also, the wiring should be the same size. One very big one, and this is, you got to be careful about this, is that wax potting. PAFs were not wax potted. Gibson did not wax pot their pickups until the 70s or late 60s, something like that. So definitely there are like probably hundreds of PAFs that were created, maybe even thousands, I guess, that were not wax potted. So if you want that original sound from the 50s and the 60s, you gotta go with something that is not wax potted. Wax potting is basically dipping the pickup in wax so you get rid of some feedback issues, and that affects the tone in many ways, but it removes some of that high end and the dynamics of it. On the other hand, it removes some of the inherent noise a pickup would have. But in my opinion, it's great because look, see this. PAFs, like PAF replicas at least, are microphonic, so they observe so much of the body of the way you play. They're more dynamic, more observant to your playing style. Anyway, if you look at the mid-60s, when Marshall was starting to become the main guitar amp for rock music, many people were going and using Marshalls. So this includes everyone like Led Zeppelin, John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers, everyone pretty much who, from Peter Green, Eric Clapton, of course. I mean, definitely I'm not inspired by Eric Clapton, you know, there is no inspiration from Eric Clapton at all. You can't see that. And what I love so much about the Marshall, especially those early Marshall amps like the Bluesbreaker or the early JTMs, is that they still retain some of those characteristics that Fender amps have, specifically tweed amps like the Bassman, of course. Now here is the thing. There is, when it comes to Marshall plexis or Marshall amps in general, because plexi is a very vague word that people throw on everything. But basically, early Marshall amps were the JTMs. Then there was a transitional period which so many weird amps came, like, which are kind of hybrid between the JTMs and the JMPs, which came in the late 60s all the way until the 70s. They were basically dominating. The JMPs are what most people think about when they think about a Marshall plexi style amp or an old school Marshall. These have different power tubes, they have a solid state rectifier, they have more distortion. These amps are cleaner, like they have this warm sound, lots of clarity, lots of dynamics, and even like if I clean up the guitar just a little bit, you know. So it does that thing really well. Now, of course, we can't ignore the awesomeness that's going just with the guitar. Basically, a Les Paul, I think, with a Marshall is probably one of the best combinations ever. Whether it's going to a JTM or a JMP or even a JCM 800, Les Pauls just have that incredible guitar sound. I think just Les Pauls have this very well-defined low end. It can get floppy, to be honest, or dark or like muddy, especially in the neck pickup. So it sounds like this. because these pickups are awesome. It's not too muddy, but it gets easily into that territory without really trying. Now here's the thing about these guitar tones. This is part 3, but this is coming between all these parts, 1, 2, 3. Most of these guitar tones are very simple. They're all about controlling that massive sound that you start with. So many times people tell you, okay, here's how to get a great tone, and they would start with something very simple and then build overdrive to it, adding things to it. This is the opposite. Back in the day, people didn't have the pedals, didn't have so many switches in front of them, so they would set like the peak sound they have, like the most gain, crank up the amp, everything at 10, and leave the amp. It sounds great, you're not gonna touch it. So this is it for this video. So I really hope you subscribe so you're caught up with all of these things, and I really hope you like this video. If you actually like it, hit the like button and write a nice comment or a bad comment. Publicity is publicity, so I wouldn't mind it. And of course, the most important thing, share this video on the gear page. And thank you, and I'll see you next time.